Swasti Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahi Sathya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sahna Bhavatu Sahno Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Asato ma sagamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Sai Ram. Good evening and welcome to day 18 of the Atma Chalisa Parayanam. This session is from Bombay and I just reached back from attending a funeral ceremony, and we yesterday spoke about that how the treasure for which we take human birth is safely ensconced in our heart, and all the while we have been looking out to experience that truth which is very beautifully hiding inside us. And therefore, our mind has always convinced us, not just in this lifetime, but in all the lifetimes, that it has the key to that treasure. And the mind is so convincing and the mind is so overpowering and so effective that it has been able to dictate terms to us forever. And therefore, the mind works with 5 best friends. These are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, and our hands and legs. So whatever we perceive through the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and touch, it is processed by the mind, and the mind therefore has an innumerable set of opinions and memories that it has organized, and it has used all this to make us successful in the outer life. And because that outer world is the world of these 5 senses. And that is the reason why it is logical, because it has millions and millions of gigabyte of data that it has safely stored inside itself. And it is a permanent store, both in the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is like the RAM, the random access memory of a computer, and the subconscious mind is like the ROM, which is the permanent memory. And, this is an expandable memory. It just has been holding on, not just the data of all our lifetimes, but actually our subconscious holds the key of entire creation. So that means everything that has happened so far in the creation, and how the creation was created, and what has happened so far in this drama of life is beautifully stored in the subconscious, in every living being. And that's the beauty of it. And therefore, because this game of creation is played in eternity, it has a ever-expanding memory in the subconscious mind, and it keeps feeding us, and it keeps us trapped forever, because the mind is so convincing. The mind's arguments are so convincing. And because it is so convincing, because it is so overpowering, and because of that we have found great accomplishments in the world around us and in our lives, we therefore tend to make it as our friend, not knowing that this friend is constantly misleading us from the treasure which is within. And therefore, what is inside of us remains hidden forever, because the mind is just not capable to experience. And since it does not allow us to experience, we remain devoid of the experience of the self. And that's the reason we need to silence this mind and get into the experience. And once the experience comes, once the language of the heart is understood, and once we start to decode this language through our personal experiences, the intuitive knowledge takes over, the intuitive understanding takes over, and we begin to walk on the path of the inner guru, or the inner consciousness, or the consciousness, or the Atma, or the soul. You can choose to call it by whatever name. The names don't matter. The essence is important. Our understanding is important, and our experience is important. And that experience doesn't lie, because it doesn't come from outside. I have for long stopped believing any word that comes from outside, because unless something resonates from within, unless it comes from within, whoever may be standing in front of me, I will validate it from what comes from within. And that never lies, that never misguides. So the key of this wealth, of this treasure, of this truth is with the heart and not with the mind. And we've just been using the wrong key to open a lock. And now that we understand how to silence the mind, how to start withdrawing, actually withdrawal happens automatically, as some expressed yesterday, that the noise of the world starts to create violence on our ears. And I realized after many, many years, I came to Bombay today, and I've been traveling since morning. And I just realized how I've grown so used to being in silence that, it requires phenomenal willpower to go through, this world, which is so attractive to people. And now that we have lost all attraction towards it, it does not hold any charm for you. You look at this world and you realize that you have gone so far away from it. And while I'm back at my nephew's place, while my nephew and all the other family members are still there, for me, my joy and my calling is here with all of you. And that is just a responsibility that I had to fulfill. There also, they were all had got together to discuss about the impermanence of life, because their mother had passed away. And however, I realized that it is just a formality. We listen to what the priest has to say. We listen to what the singer has to sing. And he was singing some beautiful bhajans from Kabir Das. But you can see that, they are just nice sounding music to the ears. And in an instant, we are so deeply conditioned by the mind that within 2 minutes of the ending, everybody is back into the mind. That little tug that they get in the heart, when somebody leaves us, is so temporary, and the world just goes on. And I was just examining it, sitting there, that this is the illusion. So when we say the Upanishadic truth, which we are going to talk about today, which is Brahm Sathya, Jagat Mithya, that's the first thing that the Upanishads exhort us. That's where actually the whole journey of our self starts. And the Upanishads say that what we see as Jagat. Now, what is Jagat? Jagat is the world as we perceive through the mind and the five senses. All that we perceive using these senses, all that we call as our city, our home, our world, our country, our friends, all our home, our garden, our pets, all this world with its vegetation, all this world which is on fire, all this world that is fighting with each other, all the world that is so loving, whatever we are perceiving with these five senses, that Jagat or the world is an illusion. It is not real. And Brahma Sathya, that the Brahman, that consciousness which pervades every atom, which pervades every living being, which is the cause of creation and which is present both within us and outside of us and is always there, that consciousness, that supreme intelligence, that supreme energy which vibrates in each one of us at different levels of vibratory level, that alone is real, that alone is a truth, that alone is who we are from, that alone is who we are, and that alone is what we shall ever be. That is the source from which we come, that source we carry within us, that source is what is the constancy which has been and shall always remain. That is what we have come to experience, that in this world of impermanence and in this world of change, everything around us is changing. There is that changeless which once we start getting attuned with it, we start feeling so comfortable with it, so much at home. And when we say at home, what is the feeling that when we are at home? The feeling is that we are comfortable, we are in our own surroundings, and we are at ease. That is what it means to be at home. So when we are at ease with ourselves, when we are comfortable with our feelings and our emotions, when we are at this ease anywhere and everywhere, that is when we are truly at home. And that is when we experience those two indicators that we have been talking about. One is called Shanti or peace, and the second one is called Santosh or contentment. Actually, if you see, contentment and peace are interrelated. Only when you start feeling contented and satisfied, then you start experiencing peace. When there is no other thing that you are seeking, you don't want to be any particular place, you have no inner violation or a desire to either do something or be somewhere. And yet, when the promptings command you to do something or to be somewhere, you are not in resistance of that idea. You just go around and do what needs to be done. I was telling my brother today that my learning of life, if I were to put in a simple sentence, is that I must do what I have to do. And once that connection with that home, once that connection of unbroken peace is established, there is simply no need for you to do anything yourself. Everything is brought before you so that you can take an action. Now, this may confuse some of you, and you may say, what's therefore the difference between the promptings and the urgings of the mind and of the inner self? I give you a small example of how it works, and then you can start relating to it, in your daily life, because these kind of things happen to all of us. And therefore, I always use examples from daily life, which is something very small, may sound very silly, but life is full of these silly and small things only. Actually, life has never been about big things at all. And we keep waiting for that big thing to happen. But actually, life is a collection of these small little things, these moments, and all small moments put together make a big, beautiful life. And that is what is called remaining in the present moment. So the example that I want to share with you is 2 days back, I decided that I had to make this trip to Mumbai, and I had to book my air tickets. So I went online to book my tickets. Of course, since I was traveling at a 2-day notice, the flights were quite expensive, and I knew that I have to do what I have to do, even if it is expensive. So I tried to find the best possible flight, and I tried to go for the booking. 3 times it happened that I would go through the booking and I would give my credit card details, but in the end, it would throw me out saying ticket not booked. And then I had my classes to take. I left it. I came back in the afternoon. I forgot that I had to still book my tickets till a message came saying, your booking has not been completed. And then I realized in the afternoon, oh my God, I've lost another 5-6 hours. Tickets would have become even more expensive. So I started to book my tickets again. And again, it wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't allowing me to book. And I knew this was something being shown to me. And I just said, okay, instead of trying to book a return ticket, let me book one way at a time. So I first booked my ticket from Bangalore to Mumbai, and I got the ticket that I wanted in the morning. And then I looked for the return ticket from Mumbai to Bangalore, and it was even more expensive than the first one. And I said, okay, so I was choosing the flight, and suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a new flight that was flashed on my screen, and this was at 1/4 the cost of what I was about to pay for. I can't even imagine the fare between Bangalore and Mumbai to be 2,300 rupees, because the other ticket that I bought for one way, 5,000 rupees. So, it came in an instant, and, I booked my ticket, and I realized that the fare that I was to pay originally, I ended up paying just half of that fare. And something since morning was not letting me book the ticket. So, if your mind is telling you that you must do something and you must do it now, but if the consciousness has another plan, it starts communicating to you. It starts giving you such hints, and it will stop, it will do every little trick that you can think to make you do what it wants you to do. And since you listen to it, right, had my mind been active, it would have said, listen, every minute that I'm delaying, the fear is going to keep going up. But I said, okay, there is something that is stopping me. I shall do it, when the time is right. And when the time was right, I got the ticket. In the morning today, I left the ashram at 4 in the morning. I took a car and I came to the airport. I had borrowed a friend's car, and I thought I will park the car at the airport. And since this was the first time I was parking a car at Bangalore airport for 2 days, and it was dark in the morning, and I went into the parking, and the whole parking was full. And while going around driving, and there was no lights at all in the parking. So I found an empty slot. I parked my car. I got out. I wanted to, see what the number of the parking was, and I wanted to take a photograph so that I remember, because, when I come tomorrow, it's again going to be late in the night. I'll not be able to find this place. So at least I will remember the number. Guess what the number of the parking was? The parking number was B99. Yeah. And 99 is, or 9 is the number of Swami. Out of all the parking, everything was full. There was only one parking left. Now, this is how consciousness has a plan for everything. Okay. As you start getting connected with it, it starts taking you where you need to be. And since the mind is just not getting involved at all, mind is still required for you to drive your car. You still require your mind to, park your car. You still require your mind to quickly now run from, the parking to the terminal. So it is not that the mind is not required at all, but the urgings of the mind and the urgings of the heart are two different things. What we call as the voice of consciousness within is not a physical voice. It is an inner knowingness that comes when you start to train this faculty of listening to the consciousness within. That creates a world of its own that guides you to such a beautiful set of experiences. And the way it starts constructing the life for you, it looks far more beautiful. It feels far more beautiful than the world of the mind. And this expression that the Jagat is a Mithya and that the Brahman is Sathya, actually, if you bring it down to our day-to-day, moment-to-moment of living, then it simply boils down to this, that what the mind creates, what the mind perceives, what the mind shows us is a path of illusion, is a path which leads to that world where the experiences are temporary in nature and where those experiences keep us trapped in sorrow and happiness. And we keep alternating between these experiences, and we do not get acquainted to the permanence and the experience of the permanence and the world that this permanence creates for us, which we will go into that as we progress on this journey into the world of love. Because that is the ultimate world, that is the ultimate experience, and that is the permanence that we are seeking. The permanence is not a physical experience. And that permanence is what from today onwards we are going to be moving into, because we must fully have this experience of what this Brahman is. And Brahman cannot be understood by the mind. We've spoken about this yesterday. I've touched it upon today. Brahman cannot simply be experienced by the mind, because the mind does not know what it has to experience. It is not capable of it. So therefore, this experience will now start coming to us as we now start going into the recognition of what the inner language is all about. What is this language of the heart? What is this that the heart perceives when the mind becomes silent, or when the mind becomes subservient to the heart? Okay, that Brahman, which we have spoken about as God, and that God by which we have prayed in the form of gods and goddesses or avatars, that God we call Jesus, that God we call Sathya Sai Baba, Rama, Krishna, Allah, Durga, Ganesha, that God, the essence of that God is Brahman. Essence of Brahman is energy. The essence of that energy is love. Lower love, higher love. Lower consciousness, Jiva, higher consciousness, Atma, and as it merges and becomes one consciousness, it becomes Brahman. So from separation to oneness, from limited love to an all-encompassing love, from selfishness to selflessness, from the mind to the heart. That is all that this whole journey from which we have been running around in circles is all about, and it is what it boils down to. So therefore, this is the illusion that the Upanishads talk about, that we need to withdraw, we need to detach. That's why they talk about that we need Viveka and Vairagya, and we're going to talk about all this now, because we are now getting into the field of Atma Vidya, and we are getting into experiencing Atma not in complicated words, not in complicated shlokas, but we are going to talk about it through what we experience on a day-to-day basis, and how can we start experiencing it, and how we start clarifying, refining, so that what we are experiencing is not the experience of the mind, but what we are experiencing is the self. And once we start recognizing the experience of the mind vis-a-vis the experience of the self, then everything is clear. Then all doubts vanish. Because in this path, we have been misled. Many times the mind has tried to conceal and catch us unawares, and has tried to, it has tried every trick to keep us into its clutches. But slowly we're beginning to see it, and slowly we are beginning to get out of it. And I'm surprised even the scientists, I shared that video on the group after having seen it, that, they are also trying to say that, yes, there needs to be an observer. And from the eyes of the observer, the world is perceived. World by itself does not exist. It's an illusion. It's the observer. So, and our Vedas, Upanishads talk about this, that actually God is nothing but an observer. This consciousness is nothing but an observer. And there is an observer in each one of us. And we go back to the example of Sathya Sai Baba as an observer sitting and watching on the screen and having a good time. And as he said, you want to have a good time, come and sit with me. You also observe, right? So, in a nutshell, it all comes down to that. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you, share my gratitude with all of you for being here and for making this happen. And I thank all the masters for bringing this wisdom back with such simplicity. And I thank this universal consciousness for choosing this moment. So thank you, God bless you, and love you all, and Saram. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.